It was a stormy night, the kind that sends shivers down your spine and makes you question every little creak in the house. I was home alone, craving some comfort food to distract me from the howling winds outside. So, I decided to order some Chinese takeout, thinking it would be the perfect remedy for a dreary night. I placed my order online and waited impatiently for the delivery to arrive. As the minutes ticked by, I found myself growing more and more uneasy. The storm seemed to intensify with each passing moment, rattling the windows and casting eerie shadows across the room. Finally, there was a knock at the door. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should even answer, but hunger got the best of me, so I reluctantly made my way to the door and peeked through the peephole. Standing on my doorstep was a delivery driver, soaked to the bone from the relentless rain. He held out a dripping bag of food and flashed me a toothy grin that sent a chill down my spine. Something about his demeanor seemed off, but I chalked it up to my own paranoia. I opened the door and quickly grabbed the bag, eager to retreat back into the safety of my home. But as I turned to shut the door, the delivery driver spoke up in a voice that made my blood run cold. "Enjoy your meal," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You'll need all the comfort you can get tonight." I slammed the door shut and locked it behind me, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. But as I made my way to the kitchen, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I dumped the contents of the bag onto a plate and took a hesitant bite, trying to push aside my growing unease. But with each mouthful, I found myself feeling more and more nauseous. The food tasted off, almost like it had been tainted with something sinister. Ignoring my instincts, I forced myself to finish the meal, hoping that it was just my imagination running wild. But as soon as I set down my fork, I was hit with a wave of dizziness that sent me reeling. I stumbled to my feet and made my way to the bathroom, feeling the room spin around me. As I leaned over the sink, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror and froze in horror. My eyes were bloodshot and wild, my skin pale and clammy. But worst of all were the black tendrils snaking their way up my neck, pulsing with a dark energy that seemed to consume me from within. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips as the darkness engulfed me entirely. And as I sank into unconsciousness, I couldn't help but wonder what horrors awaited me on the other side. When I finally regained consciousness, I found myself lying on the cold tile floor of my bathroom, drenched in a cold sweat. The storm outside had passed, leaving behind an eerie calm that sent shivers down my spine. I stumbled to my feet and made my way back to the kitchen, desperate to escape the nightmare that had consumed me. But as I glanced at the empty plate on the table, I realized with a sinking feeling that the horror was far from over. The delivery driver's words echoed in my mind as I stared at the remnants of the tainted meal, wondering what other horrors lay in store for me. And as I sank to the floor in despair, I knew one thing for certain: I would never order takeout again, not after what I had endured that fateful night. It was a gloomy Friday night, and I found myself home alone, craving some comfort food. The rain was pouring outside, and the wind was howling through the trees, creating an eerie ambience. I decided to order my favorite pizza from a local joint that claimed to have the fastest delivery in town. I placed the order online and eagerly awaited the arrival of my cheesy delight. The estimated delivery time was 30 minutes, and I couldn't contain my excitement as I settled into the couch, flipping through TV channels to kill time. Around 25 minutes later, I received a notification that my order was out for delivery. That's when things took a chilling turn. The doorbell rang, and I assumed it was the pizza guy. However, when I opened the door, there was no one in sight. Confused, I stepped out onto my porch, scanning the quiet street, but there was no sign of the delivery person. Just as I was about to close the door, a raspy voice echoed from the darkness. "Your pizza's here." I turned around to see a hooded figure standing a few feet away, barely visible in the dimly lit street lamp. I couldn't make out any facial features, and the hood obscured most of their identity. A shiver ran down my spine as I cautiously approached the mysterious delivery person. They handed me the pizza box, their gloved hands barely visible in the dim light. I exchanged a few pleasantries, but their responses were brief and cold. As I closed the door, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off about the entire encounter. With the pizza in hand, I headed back to the couch, trying to dismiss the uneasy feeling that lingered. The first bite was delicious, but soon, a strange taste caught me off guard. It was metallic, almost like iron. I examined the pizza closely, and to my horror, I discovered a small, sharp metal object embedded in the cheese. Fear gripped me as I realized the sinister implications. Was this a sick prank, or was there something more nefarious at play? I immediately called the pizza place, explaining the situation. The person on the other end sounded genuinely concerned and assured me they would investigate the matter. Over the next few days, my paranoia intensified. I started noticing a shadowy figure lurking outside my house, always at a distance, never close enough to confront. Sleep became a luxury, as I constantly felt a pair of unseen eyes watching my every move. One evening, as I returned home from work, I found a cryptic note pinned to my door. It simply read, "You should have checked before taking a bite." Panic set in as I realized that the horror was far from over. Someone was toying with me, someone who knew my every move. Desperation led me to involve the police. They took the note for analysis and promised to increase patrols in my neighborhood. However, the fear persisted, and my every moment was clouded by the looming threat. One night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, I heard a faint scratching sound at my window. My heart raced as I approached, slowly drawing back the curtains. What I saw froze me in terror. A faceless figure dressed in black was peering through the glass, their eyes fixed on mine. Before I could react, they vanished into the night. The following day, the police informed me that the note contained a fingerprint, a match to none other than the pizza delivery person. Shock and fear consumed me as I grappled with the realization that the one who had been tormenting me was someone I had unwittingly let into my home. The authorities increased their efforts to apprehend the culprit, but the faceless figure continued to taunt me from the shadows. Every pizza delivery, every dark alley, and every unexplained noise became a source of anxiety. The nightmare seemed unending. Eventually, the harassment escalated, and the faceless figure left a final chilling message. A distorted voice echoed through a phone call, saying, "You can't escape what you've tasted." With that, the torment ceased as mysteriously as it had begun. To this day, the identity of the faceless figure remains unknown, and the scars from that night linger in my mind. The experience serves as a haunting reminder that sometimes the horrors we encounter are delivered right to our doorstep. It was a typical Friday night, and I was working my usual shift as a food delivery driver for a popular app. The streets were quiet, the air was crisp, and the city seemed to be settling into its nightly rhythm. Little did I know that this particular night would turn out to be anything but ordinary. I received an order for a delivery to an address on the outskirts of town. The delivery note simply read, "Leave the food on the doorstep." Nothing too out of the ordinary. Some customers preferred minimal interaction, especially during these times. I didn't think much of it as I navigated my way through the dimly lit streets towards the destination. As I approached the address, I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease that settled in the pit of my stomach. The house was isolated, surrounded by dense trees, and there wasn't a single light on. It looked abandoned, like something straight out of a horror movie. Despite my growing apprehension, I parked my car and grabbed the food delivery bag. I cautiously made my way up the overgrown pathway to the front door, feeling as though I was being watched every step of the way. The eerie silence was deafening as I reached the doorstep and placed the bag down, as instructed. Just as I was about to turn and leave, I heard a faint sound coming from inside the house, a low, guttural moan that sent shivers down my spine. My heart pounding in my chest, I hesitated for a moment before deciding to investigate further. Perhaps someone inside was in need of help, and it was my duty to ensure their safety. I slowly pushed open the creaky door, the darkness of the interior enveloping me like a thick blanket. The smell hit me first, a sickeningly sweet odor that made my stomach churn. I fumbled for my phone, using its dim light to guide me through the murky hallway. The floorboards groaned beneath my weight as I cautiously made my way deeper into the house, the sense of dread growing with each passing moment. That's when I saw it, a figure hunched over in the corner of the room, its back facing towards me. It was whispering something incoherent, its voice filled with a sense of despair that sent chills down my spine. I called out, asking if everything was all right, but received no response. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I took a step closer, my heart hammering in my chest. And that's when it turned. Its face twisted into a grotesque mask of agony, eyes hollow and devoid of life. I stumbled backward in horror, realizing with a sickening jolt that this was no ordinary person. Before I could react, it lunged towards me with inhuman speed, its fingers stretched out like claws. I barely had time to react, scrambling backwards as it crashed into the wall beside me. Adrenaline coursing through my veins, I bolted towards the door, the sound of its anguished screams echoing in my ears. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, hands shaking as I fumbled for the keys. With trembling fingers, I started the engine and peeled out of there. The image of that twisted figure burned into my mind forever. To this day, I have no idea what I encountered in that house, or what would have happened if I hadn't escaped when I did. All I know is that some doors are better left unopened, and some deliveries are better left undelivered.